There's a kind of fear that doesn't scream. It doesn't run. It doesn't beg or cry or even speak. It just stops. You stop. Your breath, your voice, your sense of time, your ability to make sense of what's happening is the kind of fear that doesn't feel like fear. It feels like absence, like falling into a hole with no bottom. Let's talk about what happens when terror exceeds the brain's capacity to process. Most people think fear is loud, that it's about heart-pounding adrenaline, that it means running, fighting, surviving with fire in your eyes. But absolute terror is different. It doesn't activate you. It erases you. Let's talk about the freeze response. You've heard of fight or flight, but when the threat feels too big, when there's no escape, no chance of winning, no hope of control, the brain chooses freeze. It numbs. It dissociates. It prepares for pain by shutting down everything that would feel it. Your muscles go slack. Your eyes go wide. Your breathing slows. Your heartbeat drops because your brain isn't trying to fight. It's trying to survive the unbearable. Let's talk about peritraumatic dissociation. This is what happens when something so terrifying, so violent, so deeply unnatural happens that the brain splits. Not in madness, in protection. You leave your body, not physically, but mentally, neurologically, spiritually. You float above. You feel like you're watching someone else. You become a ghost in your own skin because your brain understands something. If I have to feel all of this right now, it will destroy me. Let's talk about time distortion. During absolute terror, the brain's perception of time fractures. Seconds stretch, hours vanish, moments replay. Reality becomes untrustworthy. This isn't imagination. This is the prefrontal cortex going offline. You are no longer forming a narrative. You are just trying to exist without shattering. Let's talk about why you don't scream. In movies, victims scream. In real life, they go silent because the vocal cords freeze. The survival part of the brain says, don't move, don't speak, don't draw attention. It's primal. It's ancient. It's what prey does when the predator is already too close. Still think fear is weakness? Let's talk about what terror does to memory. Some people forget everything. Some remember too much. Some relive it nightly in dreams that wake them gasping. This isn't bad memory. This is trauma. When terror hijacks the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory encoding, the result is chaos. Fragments, loops, missing pieces, frozen flashes. You can't just get over it because your brain didn't file it like a normal experience. It stored it like a scar. Let's pause. You think terror is about what happens on the outside, but the real damage? It happens inside. It's not just fear. It's a complete rewriting of how you understand the world and how you understand yourself. After true terror, you're never the same because your brain had to choose, break or survive. And either way, something gets lost. After the scream is swallowed, after the silence swallows you, after the moment passes, but refuses to let you go, something changes. Not outside, inside, and no one sees it. You look the same. You speak the same. You go to work. You answer messages. You laugh when expected. But something inside you didn't come back. Let's talk about who you become after terror. Not the same person. Not a new one either. Something in between. Someone that survives on muscle memory and practice normalcy. You learn to function. But functioning is not living. Let's talk about identity collapse. When terror breaks the world, it also breaks the mirror you use to see yourself. The one who believed the world was safe. Gone. The one who believed they had control. Gone. The one who thought they know what to do in a crisis. Gone. And in their place, a stranger who doesn't trust light anymore. A self stitched together from instinct and silence. Let's talk about emotional anesthesia. You don't feel joy the way you used to. You don't cry when you expect to. You don't get excited. You don't get angry. Not because you're healed, because you're frozen. Your nervous system stayed in freeze. Your emotional body learned to shut down anything that might feel too much, because too much reminds it of then. Let's talk about hypervigilance. You check the doors, you check the windows, you scan faces, you walk through every room like something is hiding in it, even when it's quiet, especially when it's quiet. You don't call it fear. You call it being prepared. You call it being careful. You call it just how I am now. But that's not personality. That's programming. That's what your brain did when it decided, never again will I be caught off guard. Let's talk about shame after survival. You blame yourself for freezing, for not screaming, for not running, for how you reacted or didn't. You think you should have been stronger. You think what happened is somehow your fault. But your brain did exactly what it had to do to keep you alive. It wasn't weakness. It was ancient intelligence. Still, you carry that shame like a second skin, and it's heavy. Let's talk about split identity. There's a version of you that remembers, and there's a version of you that wants to forget, and they live in the same body, talk to the same people, look in the same mirror, but they don't speak to each other, because if they did, the truth might break you again. So you compartmentalize, you build walls in your own mind. You keep the terror in its box and lock it tight, but that box leaks. Let's talk about dreams. Not the good kind, the kind where your body remembers what your mind denied, where your breath shortens and you wake soaked in adrenaline, where your legs kick because they couldn't run then. Your dreams are not nightmares. They are echoes. They are truth replayed by a nervous system that still thinks to what's happening. Let's pause. You thought trauma was a chapter, something that happened and ended, but it's not a chapter. It's a rewrite of your safety, your identity, your capacity to trust the world. And the hardest part, sometimes the you who went through it never really returns. Not fully, but something else can grow. Not the same, not what was lost, but something just as real. You want to go back? Back to the person you were before the panic, before the silence, before the world cracked and poured something dark into your nervous system. But here's the truth. There is no going back. Not because you failed, but because your brain rewired itself to survive. Let's talk about neuroplasticity after terror. The brain is not a static machine. It bends. It adapts. It builds new pathways in response to experience. And when that experience is trauma, especially overwhelming, senseless, annihilating trauma, those new pathways aren't about joy. They're about protection. Hyperawareness becomes default. Emotion gets filtered through caution. Memory gets fragmented. And trust becomes a calculated risk, not a given. Your brain is not broken. It's been rewired to prioritize survival over peace. Let's talk about why healing doesn't feel good at first. You think healing means feeling better, but often, healing means feeling everything you've been avoiding. It means your body starts thawing. And with that thawing comes pain, flashbacks, tears, uncontrolled emotions. You panic and think you're relapsing. You're not. You're returning to what was frozen. And the pain isn't new. It was just quiet, buried, waiting. Let's talk about why back to normal is a myth. There's no switch, no single therapy session, no breathwork retreat that will return you to the person you were before the horror. Because that person, they were erased the moment your brain decided the world is no longer safe. But something else can happen. You can build a new you. Let's talk about post-traumatic growth. It's not clean. It's not linear. It doesn't erase the past, but it's real. You start to find strength, not in pretending it didn't happen, but in facing the truth without breaking. You begin to understand your triggers. You develop a vocabulary for your body's reactions. You realize you don't need to be fearless, just honest. And that honesty, it begins to rebuild the bridge between your body and your voice. Let's talk about trust rebuilt molecule by molecule. You learn to trust a friend again. One friend, maybe not fully, but enough to sit in silence and still feel safe. You learn to trust your own signals, when to rest, when to say no. When the world is asking too much, you learn to trust time, not to erase the wound, but to let the scar form without shame. Let's talk about belonging. After trauma, you often feel alien, like the world you return to isn't built for people like you. People who flinch when touched, who scan every room, who carry 1,000 quiet alarms inside their skin. But slowly, you start to see the others, the ones who move softly, speak slowly, pause when the room gets loud, and you realize you're not alone. You never were. Let's pause. You wanted your old life back, but instead, you get something else. A nervous system that listens now, a heart that understands silence, a body that knows how to ask for gentleness, a mind that learned to hold chaos and still breathe. You're not what happened to you. You're what survived it. Rewired, rebuilt, reclaimed. And now, you don't need the world to understand you because you understand yourself. And for the first time, that's enough.